It's time for the Daily Planet podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest have undertaken an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about the movies and books and television and directors and film festivals and this really long list of stuff that I know nothing about, but they gave it to me and they really wanted me to read through it. And that's all I can really say about it, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Daily Planet podcast. I'm your host, Michael. And joining me in the studio this week is Scott and Matt.
Michael.
Scott and Matt, say hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Did we just lose our podcast?
I think so.
This podcast is mine. Let's start the week with the usual thing we do, which is some
what?
recommendations from everyone. So let's go around the table. Scott, do you have a recommendation?
That's not that goes at the end, Michael. You're out of control.
I thought that was the beginning.
No.
Oh,
Used to
we're
be.
doing it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live. So this week we're talking about Scott's favorite thing in the whole world,
Michael,
which he will not shut about ever.
I'm taking back my
which
podcast.
is anime. He loves anime. Can't get enough of the anime. That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Isn't that right, Scott?
That is right. This is the Daily Planet podcast, and we are.
I
here.
went over this part.
I don't care. We are here to talk about anime today. Before we do that, though, it's another exciting round, Matt, of In or Out.
All right.
This is the
I
game
love
where we all watch trailers, and then we say whether we're in or out on the movie based on this trailer. And I know we've all taken extensive time to study each one of these trailers, so we should have lots to say about all of them, right?
Matt,
Oh yes.
just watched them right before we did this.
That's
I was on the call and he was watching them, and he made me wait for 6 goddamn minutes.
That's
I
accurate.
would
It was
never get back.
It's more like 10 minutes. There are a lot of trailers.
10 minutes that flew by.
Yeah.
Look, it's fine. It's fine. We're gonna have great conversations, and we're gonna start with Michael on the trailer for Pop Star. Never Stop,
Out.
Never Stopping.
So out.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah, I don't even need to explain myself because it just looks bad.
Okay.
You want me to explain myself?
I think I'm in on this one.
Ha! I knew it. I'm in too. This looks like this is Spinal Tap for a new generation. It is a music mockumentary by the guys that did Lonely Island, did Hot Rod, did all the SNL digital shorts. It looks great. It looks hilarious.
The thing is with Lonely Island, they're funny things, like the I'm on a boat situation. I mean, that was funny because they took it really seriously and it was really short. But almost all of the things they do, you're okay, I get the funny part, pretty fast, and then you're bored. And I feel like that's what the movie is going to be. It's oh, okay, I get what you're doing. This is a funny idea, and then the joke quality can't really. I don't feel like the whole movie can be supported by this parody.
Well, it depends on how much they break it up and kind of keep it moving with different set pieces. I think Spinal Tap is a good comparison because Spinal Tap really is the same thing, except with Spinal Tap they kind of keep the story moving and keep changing things, and things kind of keep getting worse in a creative way. So I guess it depends. You can't really tell a lot about what the actual plot is from the trailer.
No, but yeah, I don't know. Hot Rod was excellent. I love that movie. It's hilarious, and it's hilarious for the entire runtime. And it's the same guys that did that movie. There's no way this is not funny throughout. There's no way. I will love this movie.
Fair. I didn't see Hot Rod, so maybe they're funnier than I give them credit for. But
It is. All right. So moving on. The Civil War trailer dropped. The Captain America Civil War dropped last week. The second trailer. This was one with a big Spider-Man reveal in it. Instead of in or out, because there's no way not everyone is in, I'm gonna say in or super in. And Matt, you go first this time.
I'm probably just somewhat in. I mean, I'm pretty fatigued of superhero movies. Actually, I just know I'm going to see them anyway. So it's kind of where I am there. I feel like I already felt like the Avengers had too many characters and didn't have focus, and the Avengers 2 was worse.
Yeah, I get all of that. I'm also
yeah.
only semi in. I think that I would probably say I was out if not for the fact that it seemed like this movie actually has like a specific thing it's addressing. Like Avengers 2 just kind of like had to make up a new bad guy for them to fight in a pointless manner. But this one is sort of trying to explore a more serious idea and maybe some of the characters in terms of the philosophy of like, do the Avengers have too much power and are they dangerous? And that I can kind of buy that premise, and it might be interesting enough for me to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely super in on this one. I disagree that. I mean, I think Avengers 2 was a movie with a lot of problems, but I think the villain in there absolutely was essential to get the character of Tony Stark to where he needs to be on the opposite side of Captain America in this movie. And the thing I'm so excited about is that, you know, we have this and we have Batman versus Superman coming out within months of each other. They're both having their big superheroes fight each other, but they're coming at it from a really fundamentally different way. Marvel is coming at it as we've seen these characters be friends for a while, we've watched them change and shift, and now their ideologies have changed so much that they're almost on the opposite sides of where they started. Captain America was always a guy that was supportive of the government and what the government wanted to do, but he's seen it be corruptive and destructive so much that he's switched. Iron Man has done the opposite. Compared to Batman versus Superman, which is we have no context for these characters outside of what we already know about them from comic book lore. Just let's fight because it's cool.
Yeah.
It depends on if they're gonna do anything big. Like there aren't. I think I've said this before, but there just aren't that many powerful emotional beats in the other Avengers movies, other than maybe a few kind of like fist pumps, and they're pretty good at getting those fist pumps in. But like, you know, this concept of like Captain America and Tony Stark facing off, like it just strikes me that the only correct way to end this is for some very important person to die in a scene that's like as emotional as the Spock death in whichever one, Wrath of Khan. Like, and it's not going to be that. Like I think even Scott, even with your enthusiasm, you kind of know that there's a comic book movie, and maybe they'll kill somebody, but they'll kill them in a way where you know they're going to come back anyway, and it's just not going to be that like.
Yeah, but I don't like. I don't need that. Like, I don't need stakes like that. I mean, I want to see what happens. Like what happens to the characters, not whether they're going to live or die, because we already know that, but just what happens to them throughout this process. I think it's important that this is not. There's a lot of characters in this movie. Sure, this isn't an Avengers movie though. This is still, and the Russo brothers have made sure they've beaten it at everyone's head, even though the marketing hasn't really showed it. But this is a Captain America movie. This is Captain America's story. This is the finishing of the arc with Bucky he's had over his 3 movies. So I mean, I think there are a lot of characters in it, and it's going to have a big explosive finish probably. But this is that character story.
Yeah. I mean, I see Matt's point strongly, which is that in these superhero movies, like, it can be very difficult to like present stakes that you believe, like that there are consequences, because these are fundamentally action movies, which is like fighting in a way that you have to believe is dangerous on some level to someone, otherwise you don't care. And after all of these movies of everyone being invincible, and like most of the side characters who they throw in, like they threw in the death of the Flash dude or whatever in the last one, Quicksilver, like you don't actually care about them, but they just kind of cheat and try to make you care about them, so that like something can happen.
The stakes in no movie like this are the main characters going to win? Of course they're going to win. That's not. It's what happens to them
it's not whether they're going to win, but you have to believe that like they can lose something important.
Yeah,
that you feel is important, not that they tell you.
But you're simplifying that to just could they die, and that's not like these like Ultron, especially. I thought with like the way they built out the ending. First of all, the fact that Tony Stark like kind of went mad scientist to create Ultron and then like doubled down on it. Like there's definitely been huge character arcs and growths throughout these movies, and this is kind of a culmination that's going to fracture the entire team. I just no one. I mean, they're never going to lose. Like that's not going to happen in a comic book movie. But that doesn't mean there aren't stakes.
Yeah, I guess if they successfully make me care about Bucky, and then Bucky has to die, then that might work.
Yeah, my only real complaint is that if the earlier movies had done a better job of spending time on Bucky and characterizing him better and making us care about him as much as Cap does, then I think it would be a lot more impactful. But they could do that in this movie. I don't know. But I would have liked to have seen them spend more time on that in like maybe the first Captain America movie. But I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, this is supposed to be quick, so let's move on. The next movie is Sausage Party. That's the new Seth Rogen R-rated CG movie. Michael?
I think I'm a minorly in on this one. I think it looks pretty funny actually. Like lots of scenes in the trailer were pretty amusing. I think you pointed out the scene where the can of spaghetti was like trying to stick its noodles back in itself, which was really funny. But I just don't tend to see this type of movie, I guess, most of the time, and I'm not confident that it will be consistently funny all the way through. But if I have a convenient chance to watch it, I'll watch it.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, I'm definitely in on this one. I feel like it's going to be pretty good. Classic.
Yeah,
it's instant classic.
I'm definitely in on this one too. I loved that trailer. I thought it was hilarious. Like Michael said, I am a little bit worried about them being able to carry this joke throughout the entire run of a film. But I think it's an interesting enough concept where you can get creative with it, like it seems like they're doing. I would have never thought of having a Saving Private Ryan-esque scene like that, and it was great. So I have faith in Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg that they can make something really funny out of this. So we'll see, though. I'm definitely in, though. All right, next is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. This is kind of like an X-Men-ish movie based on a book I've never read, so I don't really know much about it. Michael, what's your opinion on this one?
It's in some way conceived by Tim Burton, I think, right? Which is kind of the twist. Is it's kind of like a disturbing, gothic-y X-Men, but also what appeared to be quite like child friendly.
Yeah.
So I'm in. I'm this sort of concept appeals to me. It's pretty original, and it looks artistically interesting. Although it could very well just completely fall flat. But I'm interested.
Cool. Matt, how about you?
No, I don't like. It's hard to put my finger on it. I don't like the vibe. It reminds me of too many Percy Jackson and the Olympian type crap.
It does kind of, yeah.
I mean, it feels like it's aimed at a different market than me anyway. So, it could have a really neat story, and I could be surprised. Like I'm always surprised that I like things like. Oh, I forgot the name of the movie now, but anyway, it's
Maze Runner.
Well, that's an interesting example. but yeah, like it could. I mean, it's Tim Burton, so it's going to have some really interesting visual components that are probably going to be unique. And you can even see in the trailer there's some pretty neat looking kind of nightmarish stuff. But I don't know. It could just as easily be like eye rolling CG that only looks good because it's for a second in the trailer.
I see what you mean about the vibe. Like it does seem like it not very cohesive in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I haven't been excited about a Tim Burton film in a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know, like, I would say I'm in, maybe. I think I like some of the designs and some of the ideas for the peculiarities that some of these kids have. I think that it's creative and looks interesting. I don't know if about the plot as a whole. I don't know about evil looking Samuel L. Jackson, and what's going to happen. I don't know. It could be good. I like the designs, and we'll see. I'll check it out.
I suspect it's going to be one of those movies that I find things to appreciate about, but ultimately don't feel like it comes together in a satisfying way.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, let's move on to Ben-Hur. This is a remake of a movie that won 11 Oscars, so this is it's a pretty bold choice to remake this movie. Matt, what do you think of it?
Well, I got really angry after about 30 seconds and stopped watching it, so
out.
Out, yeah.
Have you seen the original Ben-Hur?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Michael?
I'm definitely out. I think this movie just doesn't need to be made, and it's just like a really flashy, empty version of the original movie, which I didn't actually get through either. But this movie has nothing to add to it, I don't think.
It seems so dull to me, and I'm definitely out. But it's like it's big, it's flashy, but it's like it's empty, like you said. Yeah, it's just kind of dull CGI. Like the original Ben-Hur, the chariot race, like someone died, like it was crazy and risky, and that brought something to the excitement of it. And this just looks, first of all, it looks like they're trying to make it a chariot race, like a Fast and the Furious movie or something.
Right.
The interesting thing. Sorry, go ahead.
What's the point of remaking a movie that won 11 Oscars? Like that's a classic movie.
Yeah, I don't
know. It never works.
Well, the interesting thing to me is Ben-Hur is a very religious movie. I mean, it's a movie where you witness Jesus' crucifixion, and he basically talks Ben-Hur out of wanting revenge and all this stuff. Like, you think? I mean, the trailer briefly shows Jesus up on the cross, so I'm wondering, like, if they're probably going to minimize that. I mean, it's a very different landscape than it was.
Good point. I wonder if Mel Gibson has anything to do with this movie.
I doubt it. I don't know if I like the lead actor. I don't know what he's not like doing a Charlton Heston voice. I don't know what he's doing. It just looks surprisingly dull. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely dull. Not worth spending another moment discussing.
Indeed. Let's move on to Now You See Me 2, the sequel to a movie that somehow was a hit a couple of years ago, which is a movie about four magicians who are also thieves. I thought that the concept for Now You See Me was interesting, like kind of like a magic-y Ocean's 11 type thing. But the movie was like eye-rollingly awful, I thought. So Michael, are you in or out?
I'm out. Actually, I didn't hate the first one as much as you did. I saw it on an airplane, and I remember finding it pretty fun, actually. But it wasn't. It's not really enough to make me go out of my way to see the second one. I don't think it really needed to be made. The first one didn't seem like it could have a sequel or like was made with a sequel in mind. And it seems like they're just really forcing a sequel because the first one had a little bit of popularity.
Yep. Matt?
Yeah, I didn't like the first one. I don't anticipate liking the second one for the same reasons, really, which is that I sort of didn't find any of the characters compelling. And it's like, well, if the point of your sequel is you're carrying over the characters, and I already don't like them, then thanks, you saved me a lot of time.
Yeah.
It seems like the trailer's pushing real hard on Dave Franco's card throwing stuff. Like there's like tons of card throwing tricks and really nothing else.
Everyone likes Gambit.
I don't know if that's just
Remember Gambit from your childhood? Gambit.
He was so 90s. Gambit. All right. So that's it. I think we were about half and half on a lot of those.
Yeah.
We will play this again once we have another big giant batch of trailers, which I have no idea when that will be, but probably coming up pretty soon because all these big
Probably next
blockbuster movies are dropping. So let's move on to our main topic of the week, which is Japanese animation. Michael, if you remember, in our very first podcast, you brought up anime.
I did bring up anime.
And I yelled at you for it.
You did.
Because I do not like anime.
And then you saw the error of your ways.
I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. But the point is that for our 25th episode, which this is it, this is 25, that's pretty cool. I decided that I would tell the two of you to assign me an anime to watch, and I will watch it and report back on what I thought. So you did that. You told me to watch Death Note. And Michael, why don't you, since you love this thing, give a brief explanation on what it is?
All right. Well, Death Note is an anime that came out actually quite some time ago now, maybe 12 years ago or something. But it's about a young man named Light who is kind of disgusted with the world, and he finds a journal called the Death Note, and whose ever name he writes in it will die within, I think, 40 seconds or something like that. There's the main plot of the series is that he encounters a detective who's trying to figure out who this mysterious person is who's killing all of these criminals in mysterious ways, and there's kind of a mind battle between these two characters.
Yeah, so he uses the notebook to basically say, I'm going to become a god of Earth and kill anyone that breaks the law, and then hopefully everyone will be so afraid of me that they'll stop breaking the law.
Yeah, well, at first he's sort of superficially altruistic about it, and he's really just like, I will be the force of justice, and I will fix the world by killing all these criminals, even petty criminals, just so that people are terrified and don't really know why this is happening, but just there's a really strong incentive against crime because he has this very black and white view of justice, and he kind of becomes more and more unhinged as the series progresses, which is a great, I love Breaking Bad type stories where the character is at least palatable at first, and you can't necessarily see their flaws, but the situation it doesn't so much destroy them as it reveals the flaws that were always in them. And yeah, the fun part, the point of Death Note is the extremely intricate mind game between Light and this detective who's trying to catch him, even though the detective starts out not even knowing that there's a magical artifact involved. He just, for all he knows, it could just be like a trick. And he has to figure everything out from first principles. And the story follows the thought processes of both of the characters, it's mind game porn basically.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think there's a lot more depth to it as well. It explores a lot of themes with regards to what is justice and sort of how, whether the world cares about good and evil and so forth.
See, I don't think it does. I mean, I think it superficially does, but I think here's what I think about this show. I think this is a really interesting concept that is ruined by all the things I hate about anime. It's extremely uncinematic. It's mostly listening to people talk. I could close my eyes and probably get the same benefit without having to watch anything. And Matt, we talked about this before, and I think it's because it comes from a manga book, and it is a very true adaptation where it's mostly just pictures on a screen, and the people don't actually move very often. It's very still. It's a bunch of still images. Things move occasionally, but it's just a lot of exposition, and it's a lot of people explaining to you why they're thinking what they're thinking and why they're doing what they're doing. And it's interesting in some parts, and it just got grating on me in others.
I think maybe some of this is painted by your bias against anime. I think even just looking at things like the intro to the series, the musical intro to the series, which we probably all skipped after maybe even before the first time we saw it. But there's a lot of sort of shots where Light is in poses where he is, like, for instance, in representing David and Michael in the Michelangelo Sistine Chapel um, painting, and and other things like this to kind of show his thinking of himself as a god. And I think in a lot of the scenes where he's having a mind battle with a character, they do interesting things with the way the scene is drawn to show who has the upper hand in the mind battles at that instance. So I think there's if you look for it.
Yeah, but those are all still images. That's like, and you can say, yeah, this is my predisposed bias against anime, but it's the reason I don't like anime is because I'm not watching cinema. I'm like it's and I understand it was a cheap form of animation that they couldn't afford to move stuff very often, but it's a bunch of still images with dialogue over it, and I just don't like it that as much. And
Okay.
I mean, and let me preface: I watched the English dub, which I'm told by Matt is awful comparatively, which I'm sure it is. But some of the lines in this thing just were like, I just couldn't believe. Like, Matt, I texted you a lot of them as I was going through, just like, this is hilarious.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean it. I think frankly, unfortunately, this is going to be sort of an impasse that we've already reached 5 minutes into this discussion because like the whole thing about anime, especially for Westerners, because it's not really our culture, is that you're watching like a cultural artifact. Basically, you're watching this thing where like the reason anime is the way it is in every way. Like you've also commented on the really weird gender stereotypes that is pervasive, yeah. and even that's like, okay, well this is not our culture anyway, so why should we expect it to conform to our expectations? And so it's weird. It's just so weird, and it's some of it is weird in a way that is really intriguing to us. Some of it is weird in a way that's absurd and amusing to us, and some of it is nonsense, but then some of it is just extremely striking. And I think some of it, and I think this is the key, is that some of it is just universal. It's like it's just universally awesome. Because I mean, okay, so it's like frankly, when me and Michael, you went to us separately, and you said suggest an anime for me to watch. And you assumed that we would suggest different animes, and we both independently suggested this one because we were like, well, this is the best one ever out of the ones we've seen. Michael's seen a lot more than me, but I was like, there's no way in my head. I was like, there's no way you won't like this. And yeah, I think you don't like a lot of the cultural trappings that are attached to it, and that does spoil it for you. So
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I thought the concept was really cool, and I my favorite parts were the really in-depth mind games where they're basically playing chess against each other. I think the show kind of abandons that halfway through, though, at the point where he loses his memory and then is just working with him unknowing. Like, it stops being a battle between the two of them, and it's just like them fighting other people. And I didn't like that at all.
I think the point boring. Of that, and I think the thing that it works doing is it allows you to see how similar Light and L are, and they kind of become friends at that point, which you couldn't really imagine them actually doing if they were aware.
No, I mean, I got that when they both were aware. Like, I think I got that. I mean, their interactions in school and all that sold that to me enough that I didn't need a person to have his memory erased to know that, hey, these guys are very similar to each other.
Well, but it made them actually be friends rather than just like, oh, you could imagine these people being friends under different circumstances.
See, I thought it would have been much more interesting if they actually did become friends and he grew to really like this guy.
Well, they did sort of.
But then they kind of threw it away with him losing his memory. Like, where he was kind of halted in what he wanted to do because, hey, I've grown to really like this guy and respect this guy, and but I just don't think they ever really broached that.
I think
are we doing
there
spoilers?
was always the potential that Light wasn't.
Spoilers.
Oh yeah, I was about to do a spoiler. Okay, I'm about to spoil something. There was always the potential that Light wasn't going to kill Al. Like, you always kind of think like, oh, maybe this can be like resolved somehow, although you kind of know it can't at the same time. But the real point of no return, I think, for Light is when he kills L.
Yeah,
I mean, I stopped watching after that point. I forget what episode it was.
I basically told Scott that he could stop watching after that. I don't know if that was the correct choice.
I think that we're both in agreement that the second half of the series is much weaker, except for the ending, which needed to happen. But there's a lot of stuff in with Near and Mello, which
I read ahead that a new detective comes, and I was kind of glad that I stopped. It's like, there's another detective. And
it's
more kind of same, not necessarily, I think, but
and the plots become like between Light and L, the plots are always like legible. Like you can follow the logic, even if you were missing a detail, and you find out that detail later. You can be like, oh yeah, I can follow this, and I can believe that a really smart person would have figured this out. But in the second half, it's just 97 layers deep of things that like no one would have assumed any of these things correctly the first time, and this plan never would have actually worked.
I do think it's hilarious how quickly it was whittled down. I mean, and you're right. I mean, they do a good job because there's a lot of exposition in this. They do a very good job of explaining exactly how each of them made their moves on each other, and how L whittled it down to just a handful of people so quickly. But I just think it's hilarious. Like, I mean, not knowing that there's a magical book that kills people, how quickly it was like, oh, it's probably this guy. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of that. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
They did it well. I thought, in a way that you could buy that L was the type of character who wouldn't rule out any possibilities. And so he never ruled out things that he didn't, conceive of as being possible.
Yeah. I think that like him killing L is, I don't know, it's one of the more effective things in fiction that I've encountered, frankly, because you really, really, really want them to resolve their differences and be on the same side, and they give you a taste of it. Although
go ahead.
I was just saying, and even up to the moment of it, like L knows that it's going to happen on some level. He's proven in his own mind, at least, that the Light is actually the murderer, and he's like, well, maybe he won't. Basically, I mean, you imagine that's his thought process. He's like, maybe he'll choose not to, and then he chooses to, and L is crushed, but he's dead.
Although the mind game is one of the most intriguing parts of the show, like the real thing that makes the mind game effective and L's ultimate death effective is how well the two main characters are explored. Not just for an anime, but I think for any series, they're pretty well characterized, and they set it up in a way where the characters are, very similar, but because of the circumstances, they're like idealistic enemies.
Yeah. There's just so much great stuff in there. Like, it's been literally years since I saw this, but isn't there a part where, y'all can correct me, but like Light's father has been mortally injured doing something, and L and Light is like very like wholeheartedly like, I will avenge whoever did this to you. And the truth is that Light did this to him in a roundabout way, but Light has lost his memory.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great, like, really kind of gets you, because you really care about his dad too at that point. I think his dad is a great character also,
and so does Light. And it's really cool, I think, to see all of the excuses that Light makes for himself, because he's not a sociopath. Like it's sometimes you kind of think he might be, but he justifies everything to himself. He is, but he justifies everything to himself. Like after he kills the first person, or he realizes he kills the first person for sure, and he's very briefly upset about that, but he immediately starts being like, I because of who I am, I can sacrifice myself, knowing that like what he's doing isn't really like a good thing, in order to save the world, and to rid it of the garbage or whatever he sees as the bad people, and then he really begins to see himself as like having this like divine sense of purpose, like when he first meets Ryuk, the death god who dropped the death note. He's like, why did you choose me? And Ryuk is like, oh, I didn't choose you, I just dropped it and you found it. And there's a lot of little things like that kind of show you Light's motivation and psyche that I find really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's all really cool. I just think it's muddled and all this other stuff. Like, you talked about the death god. I hate those. And maybe again this is a cultural thing. I didn't like it. I didn't find it necessary. I didn't think it added anything to the story to have these invisible guys floating around them.
I think the point of Ryuk that one was just a stylistic thing. But Ryuk was kind of like uncaring and bored. Like his whole thing at the beginning is he's bored. And it's just sort of to show you that the personification of death actually doesn't care. And this whole interaction with Light, where Light asks him like why he chose him to have the death note, and Ryuk responding, "Oh, I didn't choose you. I just dropped it." And in a really sort of non-caring way, kind of shows you both that this personification of death doesn't know human justice. And also the human desire for that, like sense of purpose.
And that there's a way of telling that without having a physical embodiment. And then
there is tons of ways of telling it, but the fact that this is told in an anime in a world with magical things like death notes, like allows you to use these sorts of constructs to show your points.
Yeah, and it ties everything up really nicely at the end too, which I'm going to probably just spoil for you now, where Ryuk does write Light's name in the Death Note, and is just sort of mildly amused by the whole thing, and even after he's kind of been through all this with him.
Yeah, and it kind of hints that Ryuk might be doing it out of mercy as well, but it is a little bit ambiguous. But yeah, it's definitely it's an interesting scene, or an effective scene.
Well, and you were talking about his eventual killing of L, and I just thought having the Shinigami or whatever it was be the one to actually kill him in the end was like a bummer. Like, and I know it was orchestrated by Light's activity, but I wanted to see the actual character do it. And I like there's so much with the rules of the book and like what the Shinigami can and can't do, and touching the paper and losing the memory, and if you hold it you get your memory back temporarily, but you need it to be the owner of it to get it back permanent. And I just think everything, the central conceit of the show gets bogged down in all this extraneous stuff, where it could have been a very simple but interesting story that maybe just went on for too long. I don't know.
I don't know. I actually felt it was super concise and to the point. I mean, it's basically, if we're considering what we think of as Death Note, which is the first 12 episodes.
26. Oh,
it's 26 episodes.
It's the first 26 episodes, and they're 20 minutes each. So that comes out to like 7 hours, which is less than a single season of like real TV.
Yeah, way less than a single season of real TV. But I don't know. I thought it was. I enjoyed it. So I thought everything was necessary for the most part. But I certainly wouldn't criticize it for being full of filler.
Yeah, I think there's a taste thing. Like I like a lot of weird nerd things where the whole appeal of it is like, this is one of the things I love about Worm and the Harry Potter fan fiction that is the popular one, is that like the intricate like consequences of powers that have rules attached to them. Like it's a very specific kind of like nerd appeal, where it's like, okay, you've set down these very simple rules, and now there's like an explosion of complexity because of how the rules interact with each other. And I actually want the story to pursue all those ramifications. And Scott, you're absolutely right, because you could have made this story. In fact, there's a live action movie of Death Note, and it's not bad. It just cuts out a huge amount, and I think it's successful in hitting the beats that it tries to hit. But that's like saying, hey, you could also make a live action movie out of Breaking Bad, and it could possibly be good, but you're cutting out a ton of stuff that
other people enjoy. But I mean, I thought Breaking Bad was far too long, which was your criticism of this. So I guess it just depends on well, I don't know how much you become invested in it, but
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, and this is really, and it is a critique I have with anime in general, in that, like, I think I would have appreciated those rules and seeing all that stuff played out more if it wasn't played out entirely through dialogue, a person thinking aloud, so that we, the viewer, can know what's going on. And I just think that's such a boring way to tell a story.
Well, I think one of the nice things about animation is that it's not just them talking. It's usually like a animated reenactment of the situation to explain it better, which is a lot more visually interesting than just two characters having a conversation.
I guess. I mean, it was mostly a character standing there, and you could tell when it went in his head because they change different colors when they're battling against each other, and just standing there thinking. I mean, that's what it felt like to me. Just thinking, not even aloud, just thinking in their head, and we get to hear it. And it was just a lot of listening to people talk, I thought. And not done in any really interesting, flourishy ways for me. And again, this is like, I'm not insulting you guys for liking this. This is why I don't like anime. These are and a lot of it's cultural.
Yeah.
Like the portrayal of women in this thing was terrible. It was awful. First, there's a character who was an FBI agent but had to quit because she got engaged, so she can't work anymore because she's engaged. Then there was the stereotypical anime girlfriend who just wants for the main character to be her boyfriend and is willing to do anything and everything to get that one thing to happen. And they tried to get a little more in depth with her, but it just came off just so annoying. Like, I hated that character.
I can understand that. I think Misa was a little bit of a deconstruction, but like I can definitely see how that I find that whole idea annoying in anime too, to be honest. But I don't think it was significant enough to the line that it detracted anything from me.
I mean, I think part of it may be like when you're. I don't. It's not that I've watched hardly any anime really, so some of these things I've just sort of absorbed through osmosis. But like the Misa character in particular, it's like normally that character isn't treated as like a tool by the main character. Normally that sort of role is something that like the main character is like lusting after or something. But like the joke about Death Note is that Light completely sees her as the tool. Like he doesn't see her as human at all. At pretty much any point.
I think she's supposed to be a bit of a deconstruction on the magical girl archetype, but done in a twisted way because she has this non-human companion who's not cute, but like a horrifying demon creature, and she saves the world, or she plays the hero not by like doing nice things, but by like brutally murdering people. So I think that's kind of like her whole point, really. And
but at the same time, if it's trying to do that, that's cool. But it still it still makes her annoying and
I get it.
Ticking all the stereotypes.
Yeah. But to go back to your complaint about, or your criticism of why you find anime in general boring. I mean, we're probably just at an impasse there, but I actually find it really interesting, and just point out, like, one of the things that I really like about anime is to try to communicate things effectively with really strong boundary conditions, which is that you don't have a lot of movement in your animation, like in like a Disney movie or like a computer generated movie or something. You just have like relatively still shots, which you can afford to do really beautifully and put a lot of time into with, with the voice acting over it. And I really like that style, and I can see how you don't, but I think there is something really there's a lot to be appreciated about having those boundary conditions and coming up with some of the sort of beautiful things they do.
And just to follow up on your comment about the voice acting, because I didn't really watch. I haven't tried to watch this with the English dub, but like
it's terrible.
And I honestly, I know you think I'm exaggerating or like trying to grasp for straws, but honestly, I think that probably harmed your enjoyment, because it's so different when you're listening to this really excellent Japanese voice actor, and you don't know what he's saying, but that's almost better that you don't know what he's saying, because he's conveying 100% of the emotion in his voice, and then you're reading what he's saying, so you understand what's going on, and you're getting the emotional content of what he's saying, and it's very. I thought the voice acting was pretty amazing, honestly, and I can imagine it just being ruined if, like, every time, light thought processes are supposed to be really intense, and like if instead it was some American actor who didn't really understand Light's character just sort of talking through the same thought process that was supposed to be really intense.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a part, but even some of the intensity falls flat to me. I mean, there's the part where he hides the mini TV in his chip bag so he can still kill people while it looks like he's studying homework. And there's a scene where he goes, "And I'm gonna grab a chip and eat it." And it's like the most dramatically read line I've ever heard for, like, and I understand what it's trying to do. I mean, like, he's gloating over his victory, but it's just, like, laughably bad.
Yeah. This sounds like a crappy translation. I mean, and I'm sure it would be an entirely different experience if we actually spoke Japanese too, because it's weird. It's weird to talk about because it's so culturally distant.
Another a cool way to look at that, I think, is just the whole idea that this Death Note, this character who's kind of like, he's not really defined by being studious, but he's like the top of his class and everything. And doing something as mundane and normal as writing in a notebook, really dramatically and really seriously to great purpose. There's something kind of goofy, meaningful in that, I think. You could call it goofy, but also just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's interesting.
I don't know. I just guys, I just don't like anime. Like, I mean, we're talking about Breaking Bad, and I know you thought Breaking Bad was too long, and that's fine. I disagree, but I like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul is on right now, which is a very different kind of show as Breaking Bad, but also just beautifully done as well. And it's just like every shot, every scene has so much going on in it, and there's so much to appreciate visually in every cut, every camera movement, like every interaction, every close up, and like that show also has a lot of people talking. I mean, there's a fair amount of exposition in Breaking Bad as well, but it's done so cinematically to me. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's just
all the things you're saying though can be found in anime, except that there's not as much motion.
Yeah, but motion's part of it. I mean, it's not like a scene is not a still image composited. It's how everything moves, how the characters move through the scene, how the camera moves through the scene. It's all of that stuff, and I just didn't get that here, and that's not fair to slam the art form for it, but it's just not for me. And
yeah,
I will say that I enjoyed this better than any other anime I've ever watched, with the exception of the Miyazaki movies.
Yeah,
I actually really enjoy.
So let's go back to that. So why do you like the Miyazaki movies?
Miyazaki, there's a way more movement in those. There's way more. He shoots actual cinema, and like I just appreciate it more.
There's definitely like subgenres, and I mean, I could link you to just like YouTubes of like certain fight scenes in certain other like popular anime for teenage boys, where honestly I find them better than anything in any of the modern Marvel movies, and like I'm not even like saying like, oh, but I'm giving them a pass because it's animation. I'm like, this is just better. Like the composition, the angles, the sense of kinetic movement, and like convincing me that this person is hitting this person really, really, really hard, and just visual language, basically, just real master of visual language in extreme motion. These are like the battle scenes, and if you're imagining Dragon Ball Z, that's completely the wrong thing. I'm referring specifically to like Naruto, where especially toward the later parts of the show, the story gets worse and worse, but the animation gets better and better. All I'm trying to say is like this exists in anime. It's just like the subgenre of Death Note is this very slow-paced chess game, and it's all very internal.
Exactly. And additionally, if you're looking for something more cinematographic, there's a anime director called Satoshi Kon, who, the director Darren Aronofsky, who did Pi and Requiem for a Dream and all that. Mm-hmm. He directly stole a lot of shots, not really stole, but reproduced in live action as a homage to Satoshi Kon, because he admired his cinematography so much. So there's some shorts that he did that you might find on YouTube that you could appreciate without investing too much time. But there's also a very interesting series called Paranoia Agent that he wrote and directed, which is there's not any action in it at all, really, but it's a really interesting, beautiful series exploring sort of this idea of what is real and what is not real. But anyway, look up Satoshi Kon.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I was hoping, like, when we decided to do this and you guys gave me this assignment, basically, I was almost really looking forward to it because I was hoping that maybe, like, it had been a long time since I had watched any anime. Like, I was hoping maybe I had grown older and would find something else to appreciate, or maybe there was just something I missed. And I just found a lot of the same things that had always bugged me about watching these shows that I found again in this. And I will say it's the best one I've watched to date. Like, I thought the concept was really great. I thought that was a really clever idea, and I like, for the most part, how it played out. But I don't know. I just don't think the genre is for me, which is sad because I want to be open to experiencing all different kinds of art, but there's just some things I can't get around, and I can't say that as much as I enjoy the concept that I enjoyed watching these 7 hours.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I really have no hard feelings because there's plenty of things that I just like kind of irrationally. Kind of irrationally don't like. Like I'm just like, yeah, no, I don't like this. Everyone else likes this. I don't like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have those sorts of things.
So maybe a year from now, I'll watch something else that I loved. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, you like Miyazaki, so
yeah,
there's some,
yeah.
I guess.
I have his entire collection actually, which I don't like all his films. Some of them are really good. I really like Spirited Away a lot.
I actually don't like any of his films, but I can see why you would.
Just on the off chance, have you seen kind of the big classics, Akira and Ghost in the Shell?
I saw Akira a long time ago.
I think we started watching it in high school, maybe, Scott.
Yeah, maybe we didn't finish it.
I didn't really get into it.
I feel like I've seen Ghost in the Shell too.
Yeah,
but I don't remember it.
In both of those, I mean, Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah. There was a series, Ghost in the Shell, that you might have seen parts of, but there was a movie as well.
I mean, it's funny. Ghost in the Shell. It's not a flawless movie, and in fact, pretty much everyone I've tried to show it to has like not been able to sit through it. I think because it's sort of a really inhuman movie. It's got a very similar tone to Blade Runner, actually. I don't know if that's intentional or not.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this very inhuman movie about these characters who are like almost fully robotic, but they used to be humans, and then it's got these long scenes of just like the character kind of moving through the landscape of the city with no dialogue and just like all these. And so the reason I bring it up is that it's got all these very cinematic shots of like the character on like a pole boat going down a kind of like a Venetian like canal, except they're in like a super high tech Tokyo, and there's all this stuff happening around them, and it's highly cinematic, but it's also not the most successful storytelling.
Yeah,
so there's definitely some give and take in terms of I hard to sit through, but it's very cinematic, definitely.
Yeah, a lot of those classic anime movies actually, I don't find hold up very well, or maybe I just never appreciated them because the animation quality was much worse back then. And actually, I don't really know why Akira is as well acclaimed as it is. Maybe it's just its like historical significance, and like maybe it brought attention to the genre or something.
Yeah,
Do you know?
I don't remember it being that great.
Yeah.
I barely even remember it actually. I just know the guy goes like all powerful or something. I very vaguely remember that story.
It's got like some biker gangs and a psychic, basically.
I will say that I really appreciated, at least in the 26 or so episodes of Death Note I watched, that they didn't go creepy women clothing very often. Like the main female character kind of wore some weird things, but it wasn't like over the top, ridiculous, stereotypical anime level of these women wearing these ridiculous outfits.
I think that's probably the greatest kind of indication of the difference between this and that, because normally it is just like marketed for teenage boys, and it's like, well, we got to have some TNA in there. And I mean, Marvel does the same thing, so much worse, because every Marvel superhero woman is naked except with a color on their skin, right? That's the costume.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're talking about the comics, right?
We're talking about the comics, right?
Yeah.
But the point being that most of this stuff comes from comic books or manga, as they call it in Japan. But it's the same thing. It's graphic, graphic stories marketed to teenagers, and it's highly designed to titillate. And so Death Note is being like, yeah, we have this trope in here, but she's not here to titillate. She's here to show you how inhuman our main character has become, and also maybe play some other games with the trope, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I just appreciated that it didn't. Yeah, I feel like it definitely could have. Like there was opportunities to go that way, and I'm glad it didn't. And I think if the Marvel live action movies dress their female characters like that, I'd have a huge problem with that too. I agree that women portrayal in comic books historically has been terrible. I think it's getting better. One of my favorite comics right now is the new Miss Marvel series, which is played by a Islamic teenage girl who gets superpowers, and it's actually really great.
Yeah, I think most of these things are getting a lot better, but only quite recently. I mean, even Disney movies had like horrible sort of like gender defining stereotypes in their princesses until quite recently. And can I just point out again one of the things I hate most in this world of entertainment, which is James Bond is still stuck in like, a 50s era mentality toward thinking about women as sex objects, but we won't go into that again.
The funny thing I read about the Disney ones is because they were like, because all these old fairy tales and folk tales were like public domain. In order for them to like capture the copyright on it, they had to stay very close to what the original fairy tale story was. So like the treatment of women in those fairy tale stories was already dated when Disney was making the movies in like the 30s and 40s and 50s. It was already dated then, and now it's like even more so. So I thought it was really funny that they were starting from a position of bad opinions on gender, even as they were making the movies in that time period. That's just a random fact of the day.
Yeah, well, we could probably talk at length about Disney's terrible copyright policies and lobbying.
Yeah, but they might shut us down, so let's not do that.
They'd probably shut us down.
All right, so let's wrap up. That was our anime discussion. We probably won't have another one because I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this again. But I appreciate you guys suggesting something for me and showing me something I had never seen before, and I didn't hate it, which was good. So let's move on then to our recommendations of the week. I hope you guys are prepared for this.
We are.
Michael?
Go first, Matt.
Oh, okay. This isn't really a recommendation. I don't know. Can I recommend an article that I read? Does that count, or does it have to be a movie and or book?
No.
So it was an article about this like secret society thing that was happening in San Francisco. I'm going to have to find the link, and I'll put the link down there. But basically the idea of like what this thing was is like you'd just be like hanging out with someone and they'd be like, you know what, I think you might be interested in this, and they'd give you like a card that was in like just a little like fancy looking case that just said discretion, and then the card is just like blank with a strip, and then they're just like, go to this location on this date, and then you go to the location and it's like a door in like a dilapidated building, and you open it and you go in, and and then basically it's described as being like the game Myst, as far as I'm concerned, where you just face all these weird puzzles inside this building, and this is like a building in San Francisco, so it's just like you're in San Francisco and you step into this weird mystery world and you don't know what the hell's going on, and it turns out, I mean, I suggest reading the article. The article spends way too much time talking about like how this, like the company that was behind all this had all this terrible drama, which I find so much less interesting than just the idea that someone was out in the world trying to make this work as like a...
Yeah, this doesn't sound like real life.
Yeah. Well, the thing was like they eventually wanted to be able to make the thing profitable, but so what the article is writing about was like the very early stages of it, where it was pretty much just fun and awesome, and then they were like trying to introduce the mechanisms that would make it profitable, and that's kind of where it all broke down, because
and then capitalism ruined it.
Well, capitalism. I mean, yeah, I guess it never would have existed.
I knew I was going to bug you with that.
Never would have existed in the first place of capitalism, Scott. So that was a fun article, and it's fun to think about, because I like to like.
So on an added as an added comment to that, something like this does exist, I believe, in the form of escape the room.
Yeah. There's just escape room challenges. Yeah.
Have you ever done one of those, Scott?
No, I really want to. There's one in Dallas, I think.
Yeah, I think there. So there, like, since I was in Bristol, like, there was one, and then like within a year, there were like 5 other ones that opened. And each time they did it, they got better and better. But it's basically like a real live sort of Myst, or maybe like Legend of Zelda or something, dungeon experience.
It's more like King's Quest,
maybe something like that. Yeah,
there's everything in the room has a puzzle or a way to. Yeah,
they all have different flavors. In fact, there was one that I heard about in the northeast of America somewhere, where they have like a zombie in the room. Like there's one of their actors playing a zombie on a chain, and the time limit that you have is that the chain is getting gradually longer and longer, and at some point the zombie will overcome things that are important to the puzzle if you haven't solved that yet. So you have to then like lure the zombie away with like a decoy member of your party and so forth. And it's just, people are getting really creative with them, and I think they're really cool and approaching this sort of idea that you're talking about.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. I guess the key thing about this one is that when you go into it, you have no idea what's going on, which is sort of intrinsically amazing,
which is impossible for any sort of
actual
thing.
Business.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a cool thing that people are doing that hasn't been done before.
Yeah. All right, Michael, have you come up with some stuff in that time period?
Well, I have a recommendation for, I don't know if anyone has heard about this new bit of technology. There's this thing called a smartphone now,
Jesus.
which is kind of like a normal phone, but it's got like a screen on it, and it's basically a computer in a phone.
Uh-huh.
And I just got one, and it's pretty goddamn amazing.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, up until Michael got a phone where you were right when you graduated high school, right?
Yeah.
And you used that same phone until you moved to Bristol, right?
Pretty much.
And then you didn't have a phone. Did you have a phone over there?
I did, but I had a trash pay-as-you-go, like £5 phone.
Gotcha. So this is your first experience in the world of smartphones.
It's pretty cool. It's kind of like, it reminds me of a story where a friend of ours, previously Matt, had told us that he wasn't going to show his newborn daughter elephants until she was like 11, so she'd be really amazed that elephants existed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what is happening to me with this smartphone.
I feel like everyone you know has been telling you how great smartphones are.
I mean, I've seen people staring at them while talking to me. And but I only now realize why.
Because the whole world is on there.
They can do anything on these things.
It's always going to be more interesting than what's happening around you. So
you can use your camera and live change text on things to different languages, and keep the same font, just to be artistically pleasing for no other reason. Yeah, it's fantastic.
I'm glad you discovered this, Michael. I'm very proud of you.
I can do anything now.
Now I can text you instead of having to call a random number that belongs to your dad whenever you're in America. I'm very excited about this.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah, you're gonna really enjoy having your thought stream interrupted every 45 seconds for the rest of your life.
Welcome. All right. Yeah. So the thing I wanted to recommend to close up is 10 Cloverfield Lane. This movie came out last weekend. Sequel to Cloverfield, kind of, sort of. It's a really good movie. Directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who I think is a first-time director. Was a film critic, actually, and then made a movie. He had made a bunch of other stuff, too, but he written a script. It got picked up. Or, actually, I don't know if he wrote it. I don't know. Well, anyway, he directed this movie, and it's really great. I don't want to talk too much about it, because I don't want to spoil it. I think the Cloverfield name is going to become kind of like J.J. Abrams, brand for first-time directors doing weird sci-fi stuff. So I think we're going to see more movies with Cloverfield in the name. It's interesting. I think the marketing kind of misled people about the film, without saying too much, but it's a very well done thriller. All the actors in it are great. John Goodman is excellent, like just amazing. Like this movie's not going to win any awards, but it was a Academy Award winning performance. I thought, like, he was incredible.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet. I really want to. I'll probably see it tomorrow. I've been moving and stuff, so I haven't got a chance. Yeah. But I will say the trailer was like one of the few trailers where I was like actually excited about the movie coming out. I was like, oh, this actually looks really interesting. It's like really fresh and like interesting. It's not like a type of movie that fits a formula.
The way they did the marketing for it was pretty cool too. Because everyone thinks that this is a movie that just came out of nowhere, which of course isn't true. The director had been working on this movie for 2 years. It was just always called something else. I think the shooting name was like Valencia or something. They only revealed 2 months before it came out that it was actually 10 Cloverfield Lane, and they revealed that in the trailer. So it wasn't as if people didn't know this movie existed. It's just the name change and the marketing towards being a Cloverfield movie was sudden and surprising, which I think worked for the film. I mean, I think if this was a movie that we got the standard trailer cycle where we got a trailer 10 months out and then more information as we came, it would have kind of ruined it. I liked that it was a surprise. I liked that I didn't really know much about it going in. I thought that having the name Cloverfield in it kind of hurt it a little bit because there's a certain level of expectation that went into that based off the first movie.
Without ruining anything, is it in any way related to the events of the first movie?
No. Okay,
that I'm pleased by that answer.
Yeah. I think they threw in some like offhand references to stuff in the first movie.
Yeah. I like the idea of Cloverfield just being like kind of the name associated with various not directly connected,
like Twilight Zone.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams' Twilight Zone. Like I think that's a cool idea. Like that. And it's like, so you get original weird sci-fi scripts that you can put under this Cloverfield banner, which will give them a little more marketing clout. Give first-time directors a shot. I think it's a cool idea.
The first Cloverfield is still. I saw it again recently, and it's still. I think it wasn't the first found footage film to gain popularity. That was probably the Blair Witch Project, but it was the first found footage film I think that wasn't like a horror movie, and it was a really effective way of like it really effectively characterized the main characters through the little like surprise birthday party and stuff at the beginning, and just the stuff you hear off camera but don't even see.
Yeah, and the thing with found footage to me is if it has a purpose in the story you're trying to tell, then I'm fine with it. If it's just put in there because it's a popular film technique, then that's when I don't like it. Like Blair Witch Project, it made sense. Even the first Paranormal Activity movie, it kind of made sense. This was told all through security footage and whatnot. And I thought in Cloverfield it made sense too. I think there's so many damn found footage movies that it just doesn't make any sense anymore, and I think hurts the film.
Yeah, there's some movies that don't really benefit from that method.
Yeah, but this is a good movie. I didn't like the ending at all. Michael, you have to let me know what you think of the ending. I wish it wasn't there. I think you'll know like exactly the point I'm talking about. That it went from a movie I really loved to, oh, why did they do this? I think it's cool. I think it's good to see in a theater, preferably a full theater, because I think it's a really tense movie that you kind of pick up on the energy of everyone around you when everyone's like uncomfortably tense, and it's really well done.
Cool, that sounds fun. I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah. All right, so that's all we had for this week. Next week, I have no idea what we're doing. Matt, do you have any ideas?
I think we're thinking about talking about Shawshank Redemption, but I don't know if we're actually going to do that. So we could. I'm very interested in pissing off a lot more people. Yeah. Well, plus we did with my Forrest Gump one, because I pissed off a whole bunch of people when I talked about Forrest Gump. Yeah. Well, and maybe this time I can defend it more stridently. Yeah, I mean, and my reasoning for this is I don't dislike Shawshank Redemption. I think it's a perfectly good movie. I'm very interested in the fact that it is on IMDb's top 250 movies. It's number 1. I watched a video today on one of the movie websites I follow that did a top 50 movies of all time list, and it wasn't on the list, and the comments were losing their mind over the fact that it wasn't on the list. And I just don't understand why people love this movie so much. I mean, it's good. So I think it'd be good if we sit down and watch it critically and then talk about it. So let's do that. It's a good plan. Yeah. Provisionally. Okay. All right. Michael, now that you have a smartphone, do you have social media?
No, I do not.
Oh, you got to get on that, man. You can check it. You can check it 24/7.
I mean, what are you doing?
I think I'm going to avoid that particular dose of heroin.
But
you already took your first hit with the phone, man. It's just
no. See, I don't feel compelled to check it yet because there's nothing to check. It's just that like I know that any information I require, I can get, and I also have like magical like text morphine abilities on the fly.
Okay. All right. So Matt, your internet.
I'm on the Twitter social media platform. Using the handle MORIDINAMAEL, which is the best Twitter handle.
Matt, have you heard that Instagram is also going to do a non-chronological timeline, and they're doing what they think you would want to see?
I haven't, but I may have an Instagram profile, but I don't ever check Instagram, so this doesn't bother me terribly. Well, I never understood the use case. All social media is doing this now. Yeah, I guess.
Doing what now?
That your timeline is no longer in chronological order; it's in whatever order they pick for you. It's just a way for them to drop ads and stuff.
I mean, also, it's a way for them to like telepathically control you. Like, I'm pretty sure I never actually did a Google search or any kind of search indicating that I was looking for a mattress, but I was looking for a mattress this week, and I saw an ad for mattresses on Facebook. And like I almost never see ads, period. And then it's like, oh, I detect by the vast super intelligence that's watching you all the time that you're looking for a mattress.
Yeah, in an effort to actually make money on all these things, they're destroying them. Which I understand why they want to make money. I mean, Twitter's this company that's valued at ridiculous levels and has, I don't think, ever turned a profit. So they have to make money.
Yeah, like what? So like this WhatsApp software that everyone uses to chat with each other, that's free. What do they get out of this? What are they stealing from our texts?
Basically, the answer, I believe, is that Facebook paid so much for that company because they're using it as a sort of gateway drug to Facebook.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rather, I mean, it's the same attitude Google has, where Google's like very sort of altruistically, like we want to put everyone in the world online. And it's like on one level, it sort of is altruistic because they're genuinely trying to put everyone in the world online. But on the second level, everyone who gets online is now a new customer of Google and Facebook. So it's in their business interest to do that.
Have you ever read the book?
So the capitalism is great.
The book The Circle?
No.
It's kind of about that concept. It's about a Google-ish social media company / search engine / everything else that is trying to get the entire world online, and it's kind of like playing that out to the worst possible conclusion. She gets a job at the company, and she's the main character. She's really excited about it, and I think she goes like kayaking one evening, and like gets called into her office because some random camera caught her kayaking, and her bosses are like, "Why didn't you talk about this on the internet? Don't you want to share don't you want to share your experiences with other? Isn't that what life is about?" And it's just like this creepy, like taking that to the extreme image of what that will turn into. It's a good book. I recommend it. We went way off topic here in our conclusion.
What is a conclusion but another beginning?
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
I am on Twitter at ScottDaly85. That's DALY. Our website Twitter is at DailyPlanetFilms. And all of our writing can be found at www.dailyplanetfilms.com. I think that's all we had. Michael, thanks for joining us as always. Hopefully we'll see you on the podcast more now that you're back in America. And thanks for completely destroying my introduction. Appreciate it.
My pleasure to be here as the new host of the
No, that's not what we said.
I'll see everyone next week.
You just did the outro.
Podcast is over. It's done. We hope you all had some fun. Go back to your work or your school. Maybe the gym. Hey, that's cool. Regardless, just go away. But please come back next